Imagine sitting in your house at 2 in the morning. The house is completely silent, and then your phone lights up. A blank screen. No number, no name. Just an open, dead line with someone or something breathing quietly on the other end. Before you can even process the unsettling phone call, the silence is shattered by the doorbell ringing, over and over again in the middle of the night. When Shreyans and his friend finally open the door, there is no one out in the hallway. Instead, sitting entirely alone on the doormat is a Labubu doll, a strange, unverified object left with zero explanation in the dark. Normal survival instincts dictate that you lock the door and walk away, but curiosity has a way of overriding logic. That exact moment of hesitation, when common sense is ignored, is where a paranormal nightmare actually begins. This outlines the first rule of spiritual defense: the threshold. A front door acts as a strict boundary, keeping negative energy out. By carrying the doll inside, they granted an unknown entity the access it needed to bypass their defenses and spread throughout the house. At the time, they brushed off the danger completely. They looked at the eerie, grinning face of the toy and convinced themselves someone just forgot it in a rush. They even decided to keep it as a decoration. They formally invited a severe threat into their sanctuary. By treating the object as a harmless toy, they welcomed the haunting into their private living space. By daylight, the physical toll on the family became undeniable. Out of nowhere, Shreyansh's mother collapsed with a severe, sudden high fever, her body temperatures spiking dangerously within hours of the doll's arrival. While trying to help her, Shreyansh realized his own body was in agony. He looked down to find unexplained, painful scratch marks covering his skin, despite doing absolutely zero physical labor. The sickness then spread to the environment itself. Their pet dog, Tumlin, became lethargic and visibly ill. Moments later, heavy kitchen utensils began violently crashing to the floor completely on their own. Sickness, physical marks, and spontaneous kinetic energy. These overlapping, chaotic anomalies are textbook symptoms of a parasitic entity actively draining the household's energy to sustain itself. Look at this 24-hour cycle. The jagged spike you see here represents the devil's hour, hitting its absolute peak around 3:33 a.m. This is the precise window when the veil between our world and the spirit world is at its thinnest. Instead of waiting out the danger, the boys leaned directly into the terror. Right at 3:33 a.m., they placed the doll in a circle, held their hands over it, and repeatedly asked out loud if it was cursed. The feedback was instantaneous. The room temperature plummeted. The sound of crushing metal echoed from the kitchen again, and when they looked back down, the doll had vanished, only to teleport entirely across the room on its own. In paranormal lore, performing a ritual during this peak power hour provides an entity with a massive surge of spiritual energy. By engaging the doll at 3:33 a.m., the boys essentially gave the presence both the permission and the power to transition from a passive observer into an active, aggressive attacker. Staring at a doll that had just moved across the room by itself, sheer panic completely took over inside him. In a desperate attempt to break the curse, Shreyansh grabbed the Labubu and threw it completely out of the house. A closed loop represents a safe ritual, but walk away without closing the session and the boundary breaks open. Discarding the physical doll does nothing. The boys remained metaphysically tethered to the entity they engaged at 3:33 a.m. Throwing the doll into the dark street merely created a false sense of security. The physical object was gone, but they had left the spiritual door to their family standing wide open. By 4:30 in the morning, the boys finally shut off the lights. They climbed into bed and closed their eyes, fully believing they had won and the danger had passed. But the core lore surrounding these rituals is entirely uncompromising. If an entity is summoned through a game that is never officially closed, it will never stop pursuing its targets. The physical doll was merely a temporary anchor for the haunting. Because the ritual was left open, the energy remained active, and without the doll to contain it, that metaphysical connection latched onto the people who initiated the contact. The true horror lies in the unfinished ritual. Even with the physical doll gone, the family is left with the inescapable, lingering consequence of a door they forgot to close, and the chilling reality that the thing they invited inside never actually left.